everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game in which I think I can only say, there. That's what we've been asking for. That's what we've been looking for. No, hey, we're going to get outshot 40-21 and we're going to have our goaltender steal the game for us, or we're going to hold on desperately, or we're going to blow a bunch of leads against an inferior team in the standings. We're going to play pond hockey through the majority of the game. That was a return to the Rick Bowness blueprint that we had been asking for, and Rick Bowness had been asking for. I loved being able to take so many of the themes that we talked about on this show and actually talk about them tonight. I'm sure people saw myself hosting the game tonight, Kenny getting interviewed by the Hockey Night in Canada panel in the second intermission tonight. So much of what we were talking about, things that we touched on this show, so much of what we talked about in the broadcast and what Ken talked about, things that come from this show, that the people that I got to say, this is one of the things we're really proud about, not just everyone in the chat room and all the people and all the local support that we get in Winnipeg, but the support that we've got from within the Sportsnet family. A lot of people watch Kenny and Renny. A lot of people who are coming in to do games will watch Kenny and Renny to get a beat on what's happening with the Jets around the time that they're doing a Hockey Night in Canada game. And boy, we just couldn't be happier with the shout outs that we got from Ron McLean tonight. But even, Mark Askin, a legendary producer for Hockey Night in Canada, who's done, a whole bunch of Stanley Cup finals. You walk around, this guy is so well known. You walk into a coach's room and right away they stand up and say, "How are you doing, Marco?" He came to Ken and I, we were talking earlier on today, and he brought up a theme and he said, "I asked because I saw it on the Kenny and Renny show." It was nice to be able to take a lot of the themes that we talked about and bring them into the game. And one of the things that we talked about, before the game with Rick Bowness, because we know that he feels this way, is one of the questions I asked him was about this team and why, winning 6 of their last 7 games wasn't good enough, why he was critical, why he was calling his team out. And I loved his answer being that when you see mistakes, you got to correct them. And I was just thinking to myself, this right there is the difference between the Winnipeg Jets of old and the Winnipeg Jets of now. Winning isn't good enough. Flashing your skill isn't good enough. Running up the score isn't good enough. There's a standard to play the right way, and that's what Rick Bowness wants to see. I know a lot of fans didn't see that kind of stuff over the years. I know that it's been a conversation that we've had on this show for years about Jets winning games but not doing it the right way. If you want to see one of those comments, we got one of them on the video from our last game where one of the commenters came in and suggested, I think it was directed at me, but said, "Do you even like hockey?" Having a criticism about a game. And I don't know, maybe it was directed at Kenny, because I was the one yesterday who was talking about how I thought the Jets had taken a step forward in their structure and getting back to the Rick Bowness system. But for all the people out there who don't get why we come on this show and aren't all unicorns and rainbows when the Jets win a game, when they didn't do it the right way, or when Connor Hellebuck steals it, or when the Jets, pull out a victory with some opportunistic scoring or something like that, you just have to keep listening to what Rick Bowness says. And to me, the entire idea is this: you can win games in that fashion in the regular season. You don't win games like that in the playoffs. But tonight's game, that is how you win games in the playoffs. The Jets took a very good Pittsburgh Penguins team and absolutely beat them 6 ways from Sunday in that game tonight. Didn't give them a stiff. Their goaltending was great. Their second line was great. Their first line was great. Their defense were great. Their ability to generate shots from the point were great. 2 turned over goals. We'll probably get into talking about one of those goals. One clearly was offside, but the other one is something that we should probably have a little bit of a debate over. But this is the Winnipeg Jets blueprint. I talked with Mark Scheifele after the game about it. He'd said that maybe, just maybe, it was the best game they've had this year, especially coming off back-to-back, something that we have to talk about as well. I will point out, after the last game, I thought the Jets had positioned themselves well with how they played that last game for tonight, and for having energy to be able to do what they did to the Pittsburgh Penguins in that situation. But this is just a full marks effort by the Winnipeg Jets. We'll get to what Kenny talked about with Rick Bowness. I had to leave and go to my hotel right away, so I don't even know what he said. But I can't imagine that he wasn't happy with that effort, because to me, that is what Rick Bowness hockey is supposed to look like. The Jets pulled it off to a T. That is a good win. So yes, the Jets have now won 7 of their last 8 games. But now that's the kind of game you can have faith in. That's the kind of game you can look forward. That's the kind of game that you can suggest. And I think we talked about it a little bit on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast. That's the kind of game that has people thinking. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking it. I'm thinking of it to a degree. That's the kind of game that makes you think this Jets team has the potential to do something special in the playoffs this season. That's my take on it. Time for Kenny's take on it. The guy who made, I'm not sure if that was his Hockey Night in Canada debut. I know that I had interviewed Kenny on a national broadcast before this, but it just may be his Hockey Night in Canada debut. And hey, it may be one of those ones where you go back and say, who was the intermission guest on the Friday night edition of Hockey Night in Canada? Well, that would be the one and only Ken Weeb, the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, running man, nails it here. Complete game victory tonight. Jets finally played the Bowness way. Blueprint for how the Jets should be playing tonight. I don't know that I could have summed it up even better. And I took 5 minutes to try and sum it up before you got into the show here. First off, great job tonight on the Hockey Night in Canada. It was great to see you on there. Was that your first time on a Hockey Night in Canada broadcast?
Yeah, I think it was the official debut. Ryan Leslie and I had a hit after the Mark Scheifele Matthew Tkachuk incident. It was in the bubble playoffs, but I don't think it was on a weekday, so I don't think it was a national actual hockey night broadcast. And yeah, you and I did a hometown hockey last year, which was absolutely awesome.
There you go. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was awesome. That was super fun, and I appreciate all the messages that have been sent in. I know the chat room's been really kind, and the words that Ron shared about our show, absolutely tremendous. And his words towards me, really. You mentioned this, Sean, when you talked about your debut and kind of being a little bit nervous, and Ron just has a way of putting you at ease. I mean, we're talking during the intermission, and then he gives you the warmest welcome one could ever imagine. So anyways, yeah, awesome stuff. Yeah, it was really a little bit emotional and super fun, and that's for sure.
I don't want to interrupt that, but before you move on, I have to say with Ron, you nailed it. Like my first time on it, I remember being so nervous and you're so stuck inside your head. And then all of a sudden Ron comes on and he talks to you and he greets you, and it just, everything is so good. He really puts you in a good spot because he understands the spot that someone's in that position. I just, with some of the things you were talking about, how they talked about the show, I was a little disappointed about one thing. It was he referred to you as the star of the Kenny and Renny show. And I have to say, I'm not upset that he said that. Why I'm upset is because I thought he was a fan of the show. I thought he watched, and clearly if that's his takeaway, he doesn't watch this show. So I had thought all this time, I had imagined we were here talking and Ron McLean was sitting eating popcorn in behind the scenes, having a sparkling water or something like that, and all this time he can't be watching if that's his takeaway. I'm just kidding.
Incredible. Anyways, sorry, I just, I mean, awesome. I don't know why, but I have a little Josh Morrissey feeling, I guess, right now, so I don't know. It just feels like just an awesome highlight. And I don't know, just like I said, this will be the only time I compare myself to Josh Morrissey, but him sharing those thoughts about how pumped he was to have Tom looking down at him, I think it's a cool moment for today. And I never told my mom that I was going to be on hockey night, but it was a pretty cool thing.
It was an amazing thing, Ken. You rocked it, and I got to say this: don't short. And I know you're not. Don't short yourself for a second on the accomplishment. Sometimes, because we do this job, that kind of stuff can seem like a little bit like, yeah, well, you did this, you did that. Hockey Night in Canada is an institution. You were treated like gold on that institution tonight because you have the respect of the people who carry that institution, and you have that respect well deserved in that manner. So great job. I was so happy to be able to share you with the people who I know already knew how good you were, but when we knew that you were coming on there, I was super happy about it. I got to say, the boys in the truck, because you're not plugged in and hearing everything that I'm saying, I was there in the hallway because Mark Askin, again, I brought him up earlier in the show, a legendary producer, said, I want you to head on down, unplug, and go see Kenny in the back hallway and just make sure everything is lined up perfectly for him. And I just walked over there, and I didn't do a gosh darn thing to help you. I just sat back and smiled my face off because I got to watch you do something like that. It was an amazing, amazing moment. You rocked it. Congratulations.
Thanks, buddy. Now we just need to get BX on here to bust my balls before I go on to help everything. You'll have to take that. You'll have to take that responsibility for the next 45 minutes here, my man. Thank you, though. Yeah. It was great that we were able to do it together, and just another really cool thing for what we've had going here in the last 3 years. And it was just awesome that, like you said, awesome we could do it together. And yeah, let's dig into the buffet here. We'll try to get these other things out of my, I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
Let's do it. Before you do that, I just want to say you touched on it. The 3 years that we've been doing this, it takes me back to the way that Ron and the group there talked about the Kenny and Renny podcast when we were covering a little bit extra out in Montreal when the Montreal Canadiens went to the Cup final. They've been really great to us for a long time. You mentioned it. We've been doing this for 3 years, and I appreciate that it meant something to you that we were able to do that in this moment. It appreciates, or I have to say, I sure appreciate having a partner like you, being associated with someone like you. We went to the Cup final last year, and we kind of go hand in hand when we're down there. And people always talk not only about the podcast, but how they love the relationship and how we treat each other and have each other's backs. And that is most definitely the case, except when people are ripping me in the chat room. You kind of leave me to the Sharks in a couple of situations like that. But no, I joke.
Right. I tell them to get off your case, and you tell them to bring it on. Come on, let's tell the truth here. Let's tell the truth here.
It's been my honor to be able to do this with you the last couple of years. I love a moment like this. I love that it means that much to you. Great job, Ken. Tear down that game. Not a lot to tear down. That was, to me, looked like the Winnipeg Jets starting to build something special. What did you see?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with Rick Bowness, Sean. I mean, that was probably the Jets' best effort, quite frankly.
There we go.
Given the circumstances that they've had more, maybe they might have had more impressive games, Sean, but I don't think that given the circumstances, I think this was, it would have been, I mean, you touched on it earlier, let's be frank here. If in years past the Jets could have easily marked this down as a schedule loss, Sean, right? Probably stole a game they had no business winning the night before. Yes, they said they evened things out. You had a Pittsburgh Penguins team here ready to roll. They found you and I were talking to Mike Sullivan, and you got him afterward. Like, Mike Sullivan he was one of the first coaches to devise the perfect plan against Winnipeg, and they executed the plan. And today, the Jets basically pulled a 180 in the game and just took it to the Penguins. I mean, it was a tight game for very close to the 2 periods, yes. But at the same time, it wasn't one of those games, Sean, where you thought, oh, you know what, the Jets are going to fold now all of a sudden, right? I mean, they got better as their circumstances got more challenging, right? I mean, most times the team's not feeling great, back-to-back, 3 and 4, blah, blah, blah. 2 disallowed goals. One was obvious. One we'll dig into, a little bit harder shortly. But it would have been easy for that, the Jets to say, it's just not our night. 2 goals disallowed. How do you expect us to win here? We got no energy. You got a sickness rolling through the team. You got Cole Perfetti throwing up before game, like during the game, having to miss the start of the second period the night before. And all of a sudden, there's Cole Perfetti chipping in 3 assists and just giving everything that he possibly has. Oh, and Mark Scheifele, the Lamplighter doesn't even count in the game, Sean. The Lamplighter is Scheifele's tip. It's absolutely absurd, his ability to turn his stick over and tip the shot from Neil Pionk for the goal that was disallowed on the offside. Right? Just absolutely ridiculous. And then, too, the Jets didn't get down after that, right? So I'm with you. I mean, I think it could have been an easy game for the Jets to trot out the old excuse mill and say, just kind of ran out of steam, roll the dice and take your chances on Sunday against the Arizona Coyotes. No, forget it. The Jets said, dig in. That's what they decided to do. I love what Dylan DeMello had to say. We were asking him about the structure. He said, it's a mindset. And when they dig into that mindset, the Jets are an incredibly difficult team to beat. And that's what we saw today. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins, we know it's been a strange season. Big highs, big lows, some inconsistency for sure. This is not the team that put up banners, even though those players still reside on the roster and are still key contributors. Obviously, Chris Letang not in there today, but this is a team that has high-end talent. And the Jets basically, after building that lead with the 2 quick strikes at the end of the second, they pretty much threw a wet blanket around the Penguins in the third period. And Sean, the Penguins have dominated the Jets, specifically in this building, and the Jets completely turned the tables on them today, and it was an impressive showing. All the things the Jets have been talking about during the first half, and now we're into the second. There you go. Look who's in first place in the Central Division. It hasn't always been smooth, and it hasn't always been pretty. And there have been some times where they were pushed, to where we thought they might kind of capitulate a little bit. Outside of the 3-game losing streak, the Jets have done nothing but find a way. Sometimes they haven't played their best. They didn't play their best one night ago. But this was the game. If you're a Jets fan, that is the game that gives that population hope that they can go on a playoff run. I mean, I think you and I are still very much in agreement. I think this team is still growing together. We've talked a lot about the Dubois line doing a lot of the carrying of the heavy lifting the last little bit. Well, in 2 of the last 3 games, the Scheifele line did a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's to take nothing away from what Nikolai Ehlers had a humongous goal today. Kyle Connor, 9-game point streak. And he has 15 points during that stretch. But it's important when the Jets have those 2 lines rolling offensively. They're getting contributions down throughout the lineup. Adam Lowry had an incredible job the night before against Tage Thompson. He was also very, very strong in the game against Pittsburgh. Maybe not quite as noticeable, not as much in the tank, but gave everything that he possibly had. And I thought the Jets' defense really deserved some serious credit. Yes, the 5-man unit, but also the defense core as a whole. And also, too, let's not ignore David Riddick. A lot of people were on David Riddick after the last game, Sean, and I understand. Hasn't always been easy for Riddick either, and he wasn't overly taxed, but David Riddick had to play well early. He had to make a couple big saves, and I thought he was just very solid. And don't look now, but David Riddick has 7 wins. 7 wins in 42 games. Yes, it happens, right? I mean, has he been he's not rocking a 920, but he's doing his job. He's getting the job done. He's giving his team a chance to win. And, he deserves credit for doing that because it's not long ago where some people weren't sure David Riddick was going to be in the league, let alone he was going to be pushed by someone. So I think that for him, he's had a couple nights where he hasn't had a lot of run support. Today, the Jets gave him some important run support, and he delivered as well. So anyways, that's a good buffet performance.
Yeah, well, hey, I got to say about David Riddick, I took a look at his winning percentage, and it is just a hair under the team's. winning percentage. So David Rittich is not costing the Winnipeg Jets. David Rittich's winning percentage is in line with the rest of the Winnipeg Jets. I was going to trot that out, Kenny, at a certain point of time to suggest. I know that we've got differences on. You believe that Connor Hellebuyck is the Jets MVP this year. I believe it's Josh Morrissey, and I was going to say you take him out of the equation, you put David Rittich, and it's not changing anything for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, listen, I've seen enough games to know that that's you. Stats can say whatever you want them to say if you present them in a proper way, and this would be potentially one of those situations because no doubt Connor Hellebuyck has stolen some games. We know that he's done that, but I'm trying to just make sure we make the point. Like, yeah, David Rittich has had some moments where he didn't let in the best goals, and I think when you're playing behind a guy like Connor Hellebuyck, you're looking and you're thinking, oh, well, this guy's not Connor Hellebuyck. Well, no one's Connor Hellebuyck right now, but really, like, if getting what you're getting from David Rittich. And keep in mind in these performances where everybody loses their mind because he lets in a couple goals but still has to find a way to win the game. This is a guy who doesn't get a lot of ice time. It's not easy to go in cold into a net and compete against the very best players. Like, look at what everyone's been talking about with the players getting back into the lineup. Look at Cole Perfetti and Blake Wheeler and how they performed tonight after just getting, 1, 2, 3, 4 games behind them, as they're getting back up to speed. That's what a backup goaltender fights every time they go into the net, is not being in for an NHL game speed and trying to pick up where they left off. Who knows how long ago that was. David Rittich hasn't been costing the Winnipeg Jets. He was absolutely great here tonight. And I thought that I think that for the most part, he hasn't been problematic. I think he's taken a little bit of a beating sometimes in our chat room and on Jets Twitter over and over. I don't think it's called for. I think David Rittich is another one of these. This is another one. Sam Gagner. There's when things don't go well for Sam Gagner, you sure do hear about it. But this is a guy, one of the stories that we had queued up to go for tonight that we weren't able to get to because he didn't really do a lot in the game. This is a guy who's factored in on 4 game winners so far this season. They picked up a guy who is making the league minimum, and he has scored 2 game-winning goals, and he's factored in on 4 game-winning goals, and all of those have come while he was playing in a bottom 6 role, most of them when he was on the 4th line. What more are you going to ask for from a 4th line player, right? Like everything that we say about Saku Menelainen, I know he brings different things to the table, and so does actually Janssen Fialbi. But what Sam Gagner is supposed to bring you is veteran leadership and timely scoring, and he's done exactly that. What David Rittich is supposed to do is spell you off, and in the words of Rick Bowness, be a 500 goaltender. Well, he's a 642 or something like that goaltender when it comes to winning percentage. I think people need to lay off and realize what exactly his role is on this team. He is more than fulfilling his role, and tonight was another example of that. Ken, you look like $1 million. I don't know if you got any shout outs. I had a whole bunch of people sending me messages when they saw me on TV and saying,
does Ty look familiar, by the way? Does Ty
look
familiar?
Yeah. There you go. That's one of the ties from Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio Rossi, because I ran out of tie space and I needed to move some towards Kenny. I thought I said he's
sharing is caring, my man. Yeah. Sharing is caring.
There you go. I just got to say, I was busy on the chats tonight because people were saying you look like $1 million, and I was like, it's not me. It's Frankie and the boys who are making the $1 million look here. So it was nice to get into this suit. A newbie.
It's a sharp one.
By Frankie and the boys. You as well. If you want to look like Kenny and Renny, if you want to go on national TV on a Canadian institution and rock it the way that Kenny did tonight and look like Kenny did while he was rocking it on that national institution, go see Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi. They'll take good care of you, make you look like $1 million. Good stuff. Kenny, time to launch into your Lamplighter. I think you tipped your hat on it, but what's your Lamplighter?
No, my actual Lamplighter, I'll actually choose one that counts. But I mean, the Scheifele, honestly, it's ridiculous the hand-eye that it took to tip that shot, which was a rocket from Neil Pionk. We'll get to him a little bit later. But guess what? I was even more impressed by the one-timer that he absolutely blasted past Dustin Tokarski. Incredible setup. I know a lot of people got on my case, I think, after the Dylan DeMello. I didn't choose DeMello, right? Is that the one where he hadn't scored in forever? Dylan DeMello makes a ridiculous cross-ice pass that is right in the wheelhouse for Mark Scheifele. And Mark Scheifele basically said, well, you couldn't disallow the last one, and you're not going to be able to disallow this one because it's already past you by the time you notice that I had the shot. Just an absolute rocket from Scheifele. And, honorable mention, the the fake shot that Blake Wheeler makes to freeze Tokarski on Scheifele's first goal is absolutely knee-buckling, the play that he makes for the first of the taps. And holy smokes, 27 for Scheifele. I know you talked to him after the game, and we talked to him after you did, ran him right through the full gauntlet. Just remarkable what Scheifele has been able to do this season. I was wondering yesterday, Sean, when his ice time was down below 17 minutes, if he wasn't quite feeling the best. But that line was fantastic today. Really, really solid. Mark said it was the template type of game. And sorry, now I'm expanding a segment that should be taken care of later on. But man, the Scheifele one-timer, sorry, that's just, there were two great options. I'm choosing that one because it was absolutely exceptionally talented all around. So
the one timer for me is the Lamplighter for a couple things. We got Mark in there. Mark rocked it. Like his interview at the end. I sure hope they played it on Hockey Night in Canada because they don't always make it. But he rocked his interview, and he came in, and one of the things you want to do is set guys up for success. So I walked him in. I said, second question, I'm going to ask you to break down your goals and why they happened. Monitor's over here. Let's get at it. He was really chatty to the point that we were like, I was getting counted down in my ear, and then he just wanted to keep talking. And the boys in the truck, Marco had to pause because he was just in a mood to chat, right? So anyway, he talked about the past from Dylan DeMello, and what a sneaky, phenomenal game that he had, and like all of a sudden Dylan DeMello is turning into this offensive presence out there. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card, but he was so complimentary about that pass. But never mind that, is the play by Cole Perfetti to stick with the puck before that and hold on to it. This guy who's, and we'll get into that later. I asked Mark Scheifele a question about that. I said, Michael Jordan had his flu game. How about Cole Perfetti's flu game out there? But that is one of those things you were talking about, maybe on a night like tonight, it's not our night. It would have been easy for Cole Perfetti in that moment to be like, I'm weak, I'm tired, it's the end of the game, we've got this thing in the bag, I should just give up on this puck. He fights his way through that and finds a way to hold on to it, get it to the right guy who gets it over to Mark Scheifele in the back of the net. I thought that's proper hockey. That is just not giving up on a play. That is a guy recognizing that his teammate is not going to give up on the play and that he could have something and make something happen there. And that's a play by Dylan DeMello that is just absolutely, everyone on the ice is frozen. No one knows where it's going except for Mark Scheifele. Great job by him. That's my Lamplighter of the game. If you could take that comment down there, Ken.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Shout out to Trans-Canada Brewery. Hey, if you're interested in a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Trans-Canada Brewing Company Lamplighter Amber Ale, all you have to do is share with us your Lamplighter. A ton of you have done so far. If you can't wait for us to hand one out to you, though, head on down to the Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 1-1290 Kenniston, getting closer and closer to that next Kenny and Renny party on January 21st. We're looking forward to that. If you're down there, a lot of people are taking our advice. Have yourself a pizza when you go down there. Have some of their food. Everything is good. There's been no misses yet. They are batting 1,000 in my books. Head on down and see them. And it's time to announce the Lamplighter. And this one, I'm excited to announce the Lamplighter to someone who always is on side with Rennie's takes, never disagrees with me at all. T-Shoe. I saw you in here earlier on. You've already shared your Lamplighter, but you know what? You may win on that one, but you already won on your one for the last show. T-Shoe, you won a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. All you got to do is direct message Renny at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name, T-Shoe. Give me an email. I can send you the voucher, and you will be set to go pick up your own frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. Congratulations to you, T-Shoe. Kenny, time for you to share with us your Johnston Group got you covered play of the game.
Do you have any backups on this one?
I've got this one.
Okay.
To me,
I think
this
you
is
should.
just one
I
of
think
those
you
ones.
should have it covered.
To me, you can't take anything and raise it above anything else. The "we've got you covered" play of the game is the system, is the Bones system, right? It
Right
is
on.
completely and totally what he's been trying to get this team to. And I love this. I love a team that is not willing to sit and celebrate a 7-4 victory over the Vancouver Canucks. That was a bit of an ugly game. And I love a team that's not willing to sit back and win that last game that they did and be okay with it. This is a team that, despite winning 6 out of their last 7 games coming into this game, realized that what they're doing was not good enough. They needed to get to something. And this game is why you play the Rick Bowness defensive system, is because it allows you to take good teams and make them look pedestrian. The Jets made the Pittsburgh Penguins look pedestrian tonight. And I have to say this, in this game, I know that there was a little bit of an issue with Sidney Crosby. If you were watching, he was out for a little bit there. I don't know that there was anything going on with injuries or anything like that. But I thought that the stars on the Pittsburgh Penguins team did not look anything like stars up against the Rick Bowness system. It has a way of neutralizing the best players and making them look kind of like everybody else. To me, the Rick Bowness system is the "we've got you covered" play of the game. No doubt in my mind. From the Kenny and Renny OGs. I'm going to have to, Ken, just, do you have any idea what yours would be? Just quickly, I'm trying to make sure that I get up.
I have kind of an obscure one here, and it's not necessarily for the play itself, but the response to the play. This is something, too. I mean, you don't always see, like, we know it's a hard game, Sean, right? I mean, so I like when guys can, kind of laugh about things that are so crazy that happen. Like Dylan DeMello had a bit of a tough go earlier in the game, right? I mean, by his own admission, I mean, he was asked about the play and he's like, man, I've never dropped my stick on a 2-on-1 before. And he was not making fun of himself, but he was basically saying, like, all you can do is laugh in that situation, right? You're like, he did everything that he possibly could do. Like, he just kind of lost the handle. And then he made a great effort to dive and make the play, and he did his best to impede the passover by Kasperi Kapanen. And then O'Connor gets a good shot away, but Rick gets so much of it, but somehow it has this inertia to go forward, and the topspin kind of carried it over the line. And anyway, so to me, like, the reaction, it was kind of one of these. It was like, that was a ridiculous thing that happened. There was nothing I could really do about it. But you know what I can do about it? Go out and get 2 assists in the game, make a couple of great plays, rebound, and do a nice job defensively, which is something that he does a lot of time. He took a lot of pride in adding that offense. And I mean, we've heard him talk about it in the past. And here's a quick quote here on losing the stick on the 2-on-1. It's a weird play. I don't think I've ever lost my stick, then stepped on it, and then they get a 2-on-1. I was kind of in no man's land there. They made the play and scored, but it was one of those things that even if I had my stick there and they make a pass through, it is what it is. You kind of bury it and move on with the game. We've talked a lot about young defensemen, and if they make a mistake, sometimes it can be crippling in a game. Dylan DeMello, you know what? He goes to the bench. He's I'm sure he wasn't laughing on the bench, but that's one of those things where you're saying to yourself, like, are you kidding me? Like, how does that even happen? So I love the response. And we've talked about this a lot, whether it's a turnover here or a misread there or something else that happens. I thought that Dylan DeMello's ability to laugh about a play like that after the fact and then do something about it during the game. I mean, not that this is not blame on my behalf. What I'm saying is I loved his response, because some other players could see that happen and think, oh man, now you get into a passive game and you're not playing your game and things kind of fall off the rails, for lack of a better term. But Dylan DeMello's got a great personality, and I thought he handled that moment with great aplomb, and that would have been my kind of backup for the got you covered play of the game. That's sort of like a little bit of a different play. I prefer yours, to be honest. So
yeah, Yeah. Hey, I just got to say, Richard Medeiros giving a shout out to Lamplighter, saying Lamplighter is a good beer, one of the best in the city. This means a lot coming from a guy who's got a palate like this. Richard, of course, involved with the restaurant Nola. You and I went down there to go
Oh,
see him. Of course,
fantastic. Yep.
Richard, for the people in the chat room who don't know his connection to Kenny and Renny, he designed the Kenny and Renny logo you see right by Ken's head right there, and invited us down to the restaurant. We went and tried everything but one thing on the menu. I don't remember what it was. But we rocked
I think it was the
that
carrots.
night.
I think maybe.
Yes, food was absolutely great. So, hey, that's another one of these Winnipeg restaurants. I have a relative in town, my dad's cousin, who is from New York, from Long Island, has a place in the Hamptons. She ran or was one of the people that helped sit on the board at the Metropolitan Museum for years. So high-end kind of classy lady comes rolling into town. I had to build a list of places for her to go, and Nola was one of the places that I sent her along with, of course, Transcanada Brewing Company, because, hey, who's going to miss out on that pizza? It would be crazy to do so. I just want to get back, though, and give a shout-out to our friends at the Johnson Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. You won't find two businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits proudly administered by our friends at Johnson Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and teledoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. Ken, let's get into the Cole Perfetti flu game here.
Sure.
3 assist performance. 4 assists, I believe, in his 3 games back. One of the things you didn't see on the broadcast, and I wanted to put this out there because I think it's important to put these kind of things out there, especially if you've got a national broadcast. But I talked about the Jets and their potential to win hardware this year, and threw four names out on the list. Rick Bowness is a potential for the Jack Adams, Josh Morrissey for the Norrisy Trophy, Connor Hellebuck, of course, who's top 3 in some pretty important categories for the Vezina, and Cole Perfetti. I think there's a lot of people who believe, and I think that was, Gary Galley talked about it. It's going to be hard, very hard to catch Matty Beniers out of Seattle. And even if you did catch him in points, I think there would be a little bit of a belief that Cole Perfetti is playing in a more beneficial situation. So it's probably one of those situations where you'd not only have to catch Beniers, but you'd probably have to pass him by, 5, 6, 7 points or something like that. But, and this is a big but, the way that he's playing, the way that line looked tonight, the way that things are shaping up, and the way that if the Jets start playing this system and sticking to this, I think that there's potential for Cole Perfetti to go on a run. I think both of us had Cole Perfetti, or I know that I did.
I did not have
both. You did not. I
had him in the. I had him in the conversation, but I know that you had him.
I had him winning the Calder Trophy. I also have Connor Hellebuck winning the Vezina Trophy. I think it's definitely
we're in unison on that one.
Yeah, for both of us, the Josh Morrissey thing. But I thought it was important to put that out there and get that out there because I think it's important for the rest of the country who are watching tonight. The Jets kind of had the stage to themselves. Sometimes you need to put a spot like that into the show to kind of let people know what's happening out there because buzz matters, right? And if all of a sudden people are taking a look and saying, ooh, look at all these guys who have potential to win hardware in Winnipeg, then people start talking about it. Then it starts becoming part of people's subconscious. I thought it was important. It's all a roundabout way to talk about. I put that out there with Cole Perfetti. But what did you see from him? What have you seen from him in his progression from coming back from injury?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Cole said himself, first game back, not his best. He thought he played a little bit better in Vancouver, and then really that line got it together really well in the game against Detroit where, they weren't really rewarded. But you and I talked about it after the game. I mean, that line was fantastic, and they were once again today. We knew it was going to take some time, both for Blake Wheeler and Cole Perfetti after being back. Sorry, who was polling the writers? There's no.
Well, this was NHL.com, and I did see this. Okay. Bad Mood Blake says, I heard they polled the writers on Jack Adams, and Bowness wasn't on their radar. They had 4 coaches on that list, and Rick Bowness wasn't one of them, which I thought was crazy. This again is one of the reasons I think you got to get this out here. I went looking through the season over season improvement that a coach has pulled off, and Bruce Cassidy has not improved the Vegas Golden Knights to the degree that Rick Bowness has when it comes to winning percentage. Rick Bowness has improved the Jets to a greater degree than Bruce Cassidy has improved the Vegas Golden Knights. The only person he's trailing, and to be honest, he's actually, I didn't think he would be, but he's actually trailing him by a long shot, is what Jim Montgomery is doing in Boston right now. Like I will say this, and I do think that there's an argument to be had. There's an argument to be had that the Jets, because it's one of the stories that we did on the first broadcast of the year, the Jets since 2018 have got worse every single year, except one year they plateaued as far as winning percentage. But this has been, falling down the waterfall for a while here in Winnipeg. So to stop it the way that Rick Bowness has done, with the immediacy that he's done, I think there's something to be said. That was harder to do in Winnipeg than it would have been to do what's happened in Boston. But I mean, if Boston keeps winning the way they are, it's going to be hard to say that anyone but Bruce Cassidy should get that trophy. But
sorry, Montgomery.
I just brought that up. Sorry, Montgomery, not Cassidy. Montgomery. Sorry, Ken. Back to
Perfetti. Yeah, no. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he played 9:37 the night before, and Cole shared after the game, with Mike McIntyre that he wasn't sure he could play. I mean, we talked about it. We saw him when we were going back to the elevator to file our stories before our show, Sean, yesterday. Perfetti left the rink not looking. He did not look healthy.
Scheifele touched on it. He
Casper the Ghostish kind of, like very pale. And yeah, I think he shared that, we'll save you the most of the gory details, but I think there was definitely some puking that was occurring. So it was tough for him to get ready, but all of a sudden he just really started to feel better. He said around the 24-hour mark. I mean, I know that's, it's not a laughing matter, but people often say it sometimes can be a 24-hour flu. And for Cole, it was basically, that was what he was. He didn't have a ton of energy because he didn't have a lot of food and couldn't hold things down, but his ability to this is the thing. So when your body is feeling the best, this is where we've talked about the word processor that Cole Perfetti has a lot in the last couple of years, Sean, even when he was playing with the Manitoba Moose. It's one of his best weapons. And in a game like today, that's when the weapon was unleashed, right, Sean? I mean, that basically, the passing ability was outstanding, and it was just a very impressive display by someone. And then, Cole was able to give them a little bit more today than he did the day before. 24 shifts for 14:05. So what that tells you, his average shift was 35 seconds, which is incredibly smart. I mean, if you don't have a lot of energy, don't be staying out for a minute 10 shift and then spend the next 4 shifts trying to get your wind back. So high-end thinking for a young player. And great job by him on a lot of fronts. I mean, I thought he did a great job of moving the puck around and up here. Sorry about that.
No problem. You're back. You're back.
Okay, a little bit of a freeze here at the old PPG. I thought he did a great job of utilizing his teammates. And he just did an exceptional job of giving everything that he possibly had on a time that his team needed him. I mean, this is another game where, the legs aren't feeling the best. You got to have someone step up, and that's where the elite hockey sense of Cole Perfetti really shone. It came to the forefront and really was a shining light.
Yeah, no doubt. I want your thoughts on Mark Scheifele's game. Oh, sorry. Before we do that, let's give a shout out to our main man Lou Ferlin here.
Sure, you bet. For the folks in the realty world, if you're looking to buy, looking to sell, just looking to see what houses in your community or others are going for these days, getting a gauge on the market, contact our friend Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office 204-989-5000. He can be reached by email lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN, and his website is louferlin.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent supporter of the community and proud sponsor, and which we appreciate very much, of the Kenny and Renny Show.
Attaboy, Lou. Very much appreciated. I don't have the home field yet. I wanted to move on to Mark Scheifele and just his
Sure.
game. The chat room was a bit of buzz, and it was good to see it again because I think that Mark Scheifele is a guy that, as crazy as it is, leading the Jets in goals scored. I think maybe it's because he's kind of been bounced around a little bit. Probably has a lot to do. And I talked about this in the pregame show about how the old idea of Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler, and them having been the longtime tandem, the longtime duo here in Winnipeg, they've kind of been supplanted as the top duo by Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, especially if they continue on the pace they're on. Like, let's be honest, Ken, if Kyle Connor continues doing what he's doing and gets over 100 points this season, and if Pierre-Luc Dubois, whose season high in points before this is 61 points, is somehow able to crack 90 points, which is the pace that he's on, they'll have done something that Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler never did as a tandem before, right? Like combining for 190 points or something like that at their best in 2018. That never happened, right? We're seeing a new level that those players are bringing to the forefront here. But I thought what we saw here tonight is just that Mark Scheifele game, that in big games, right? Like what this reminded me tonight, and when he talked about it afterwards, Mark Scheifele said before the camera was rolling, he was like, that was a big game. You could tell that game meant something to Mark. He wanted that game, and his play showed that. The way he was playing tonight reminded me of that amazing run he had in 2018, where he was on his way to having one of the most prolific goal-scoring playoffs that we've ever seen in NHL history. That's what he's capable of. It's something that I always went back to when the conversation turned to people talking about trading Mark Scheifele, was we've seen from him the potential in the offseason. We've seen from him the potential to do really special things. And on a night where you're playing, one of the best players of all time, a player that remains one of the best players in the league in Sidney Crosby, and Evgeny Malkin, he's up there in that echelon too. I thought what you saw from Mark Scheifele was a game where he was going to go, and I think this is when Mark Scheifele is at his best, when there's other really good players on the other team that the league thinks are better than Mark Scheifele, and Mark Scheifele is able to go out in really important games and show the league that no, head-to-head, Mark Scheifele can and is going to be better than those players.
Yeah, he's been awesome, and honestly, he was chasing the Riverton rifle. I mean, if the Jets had found a way to beat Vegas, right, he could have been close to 20, right? Isn't that it's in that range?
Yeah,
man.
Yes.
I mean, he had 14 goals, and he was on fire. They were important goals, and this is the thing, and Sean, you know this. I mean, when Mark gets into those roles where he gets the puck and his stick in a dangerous area, he thinks it's going in every time. It doesn't always go in, but he gets that confidence, and it's not in a cocky manner. But this is a guy that trusts himself a great deal. He trusts his shot, trusts his ability, and knows that when he gets a chance like that, he thinks he can bury it every single time. And man, it was an impressive showing here again. I think that Mark is, we've talked about him a ton this year, and he's done an excellent job on a number of fronts, and this was another really impressive game for him.
Yeah, no doubt. I just thought that I know that I gave the Lamplighter to the other goal, but that play that he does, I love getting into the cerebral stuff, the hockey smart stuff. I love that play that he sets. Now it looks like Blake Wheeler does all the work, and to a degree he does. And you'd said the right thing. Blake Wheeler's the one thing, if he gets in on net, those hands of his, right, in tight, the way he's able to get a goalie to commit to something and open something up, it's special. He's always had that. He still has that. I don't think he gets to the net in that fashion as much anymore, so we don't see it as much, but no doubt that is one of the aspects of his game that has not faltered. But the Mark Scheifele play, the way that he drives the net, and then as he's doing that, has the wherewithal to see that he wants to open up space for for Blake Wheeler in that position. He sees that he's got a lane to the net. So rather than driving the net and staying closer and allowing the defenseman to cheat off him and close down Blake Wheeler's lane, he takes that defenseman really wide and forces the defenseman to go back and cover the back post so that there's not a pass to the net. And then when he cheats down in that direction, he button hooks and gets in front of him and on the other side of him before the defenseman realizes what happens. And that's when he gets that tap in goal in the front end. That is just cerebral all day long. I don't see a lot of plays like that in the NHL. Mark Scheifele likes to talk about himself being a hockey nerd. You would have to be a hockey genius to pull off a play like that. He does it, looks good in the process. We were just in the position in our last show where we were talking about breaking up a line that was working to get Mark Scheifele going. My take on it was like, Mark Scheifele, he's going to be fine. This guy can figure his way out of this situation, and the players around him are good enough to get him going out of that situation. Mark Scheifele, I'm calling it now. If the Winnipeg Jets get in and take a deep run in the Stanley Cup Finals, I think Mark Scheifele is going to have an inordinate effect on that run. I think he's going to show up. I think he's going to be big. I think he's the player to watch for on the Winnipeg Jets if they get in that situation. He's just big, he's strong, but he's smart. He's a gamer. He likes to compete against the best. I think Mark Scheifele is built for playoff hockey, especially when a team is going the way they are right now. And to me, a game like this is a sneak peek at what that looks like. He looked phenomenal.
And we're seeing the hunger. This is the other thing for me that people forget. After the run to the conference final where he had the 14 goals and 20 points, Jets were knocked out in the first round by St. Louis the next year. The year after that, he played 3 shifts in the bubble, got knocked out on that crazy play with Matthew Tkachuk. The year after that, suspended in game 1. This is a guy who is just begging. I know it was in the second round, yes, but still, he was taken out of an important series where the Jets felt they had a chance to do something special. And this is a guy that's hungry. I mean, this guy, he wants to win. He's shown it. Once again, Kevin Cheveldayoff addressed it the other day, when it was brought up, the year-end stuff where people weren't happy with what Mark was commenting on. Oh, shoot. Come on.
Here, I can still hear you. Keep going. Keep talking.
Sorry about that. The red light's always on, buddy.
Yeah.
I think he's very hungry to go on a lengthy run here, and I think that I agree with you. I think that 1-2 punch down the middle, and then also Adam Lowry with the way that he's played this year, I think that it makes the Jets a dangerous team, especially when they have Connor Hellebuyck in the pipes, and also too. I mean, let's go to here quickly, just to transition here. Scheifele great, but Ehlers also now. It had been a little bit not flat for him, but I mean, I think there were times where he was trying to find himself and find his way, and I think that he's still finding a way to contribute, and I think the best is still yet to come for Nikolai Ehlers here too, finding his way on that line, finding his way on the power play. Yet there you look up and he's got himself another important goal of the hockey game, and I think it is really going to make the Jets a really dynamic force here down the stretch, and especially too when we'll see what happens on the on the trade front. Quickly, let's go to Neil Pionk quickly here, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I think this is a good one by CMAC. Anyone feel that Pionk is finally starting to find his game after the win against the Oilers? I would say that it's definitely on the improved side of things. This is one thing too. I mean, that there's sometimes in our job, criticism is a part of the job. So, I did a template piece at the midway point, and one of the categories that we are asked as writers to weigh in on was biggest disappointment, and that is a relative term, as you and I both know. But on a team that has been battling for first place, they haven't had a lot of players who have been underperforming in terms of their expectations. And I chose Neil Pionk. It's nothing personal. I think Neil Pionk is an excellent person. I just think there have been times during the first half where Neil Pionk has not played at a level that we have seen him play at before. He still managed to get the job done offensively for long stretches. He's had a few stretches where he's gone a long time between points, but that's not why I chose him in that category. I chose him because he is an impactful player that when he is on top of his game, he can have he can be a difference maker for the Jets. I thought he was more of a difference maker today. He, had 2 points taken off the board, one on the slap shot and the other one on the. Oh, I guess we should just dig into the goalie interference. Why don't you start on that when I finish up with Pionk? But I agree. I think that Neil Pionk. I think there was maybe one hiccup on this trip, but I thought for the most part he's been trending in the direction that Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel would be hoping for him to trend. And I'm going to say this too. I chose Neil in that category because I think he can be. The Jets need him to be their second best defenseman down the stretch if they want to go on the type of run that you and I were discussing.
Yeah. If we're going to get into the called off goals, clearly the Mark Scheifele goal was offside.
No doubt.
That's how it goes. The other one, so I get it. This is one of those situations where I want to go and I want to make this clear. I've said this before in the past. I know some people don't like this take either. I hate the review. I hate it. I think it takes away from the art of hockey. I think what Pierre-Luc Dubois did there is old school hockey and is a goal that has counted for over 100 years of the game. And I've always said this before. I loved the era of the NHL where a little bit of, your job in front of the net on a goal was to get a little bit of goalie interference. Not quite enough to get called on it, but just a little bit of goaltender interference. And I loved the old days when goaltenders had to fight through that kind of stuff, right? Now, this is a situation where, I think this is one of those things where that could have been a called goal. But I didn't think that it was a good challenge by Rick Bowness, because I think once that the refs make up their mind in real time, then I think it's hard to turn that over, right? Because he is in the blue paint. He is occupying space that makes it hard for Dustin Tokarski to get to that shot. Do I think he was going to get to that shot? No, I don't. But I don't think that was going to be turned over. Now, I say I don't think it was a good challenge by Rick Bowness. And at the same time, I think any challenge by Rick Bowness is a good challenge because I've got so much confidence in the Jets penalty kill that I'm not really worried that they're going to get scored on. So I think in a situation like that where it's not likely to go in your direction, but there's a hope that it can go in your direction. If I'm Rick Bowness, I'm calling it. I don't want to be worried when the challenge happens and the announcer comes up and says, well, Rick Bowness has challenged, 10 plays this year and he's only won 6. So, he's got a pretty bad, batting average at this. If I'm Rick Bowness, I don't care if I have a bad batting average. If there's a chance you can turn over a goal, you go for it because you've got so much confidence in your penalty kill that they're going to kill it off. That's what I saw in that situation there. Did I think it was going to get turned over? No, I didn't. Did I think that it was goaltender interference? I can see how an official would call it that way. Would I have called it that way? No, I wouldn't have. But one thing I don't like to do is get on here and say, oh, that ref made a bad call. He, whatever. This, again, happens in real time. We've got the benefit of seeing it in super slow motion. So I'm not going to go out of the way and do that. If I was on the ice and I saw what I saw in instant replay, I wouldn't have called that, but I entirely understand why they did call it, and I understand, too, why the call stood as to the letter of the law. I just think it's one of those ones that could go either way, but it was more likely to go the way the refs called it after it was called.
Yeah, fair enough. I would say this. I agree with you for the most part, but in this case, I think a review was important because it was disallowed immediately. And once I saw the first replay, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure that won't count. This is another cool part about what we do, Sean. In the press box today, I sat beside Eddie Johnston, the former GM of the Penguins and longtime NHLer. Ah. Eddie Johnston's 87 years old, and he is completely engaged in the game. And I'm like, everything that's happening. He's looking in like, oh, I looked over. He looks over. He's like, ooh, I'm not sure. It's just another treat. In terms of what we do. But I'm with you. If I'm Rick Bowness, I'm challenging that all day, even if I don't think that it's going to be overturned. But yes. I thought there was enough contact with Dumoulin that, at least from the replays that I saw, and it's interesting, Sean, you talked about missing. Rick said there was 1 angle where it looked obvious that Dubois made no effort to get out of the crease. Now, that's probably the angle. I didn't see that angle personally. The review that I saw looked like Dumoulin was engaged in a battle with Dubois. He was definitely in the blue paint. Tokarski, I'm with you. I don't think he would have actually pushed through and made the save if Dubois was there, but we can't assume that. That's the problem. We can't assume that's the case either. So this is my take. I think if it had been called a goal on the ice, it would not have been overturned if the Penguins had challenged. I think it was one of those that was, I don't want to use the word inconclusive, but it wasn't obvious enough to be overturned in the eyes of the official, which is why the play stood. But, I mean, that's something where you stick up for your players every time if you're Rick Bowness. Now, the thing that's interesting, and this is not conspiracy theory at all, but there, Daryl Grenko, this is a classic. PLD should have been subtle like James Neal and break a stick over the goalie's head, I guess. So to me, this is always the thing about the Jets. You feel like we'd have to actually go back and check the record, but when it comes to goalie interference, this is why Rick Bowness is annoyed. Rick Bowness, who hates gray areas, is there anything more gray than goalie interference?
Nothing.
It's very interpretive, and that's not a knock. We know it's a difficult decision on so many fronts, but this is another example where it was like Rick Bowness is like, I just don't know. Like, it's something he didn't come out and say it, but there's coaches around the league and GMs and players. They're like, they don't know what a clear definition of goalie interference is, and that's because there is an interpretive element to the deal. So I've got no problem with anything that happened either. I'm not surprised it was, I shouldn't say that. I actually thought I'm sorry. We agree completely on this. I thought it should have counted, and I'm not surprised it was not overturned. And
there you go.
That's not either of us sitting on the fence. These are the facts. It just was one of those things where it wasn't conclusive enough that you would have had to have had some interpretation, like, well, could Tokarski have gotten over? Well, we won't know that because what we saw is what we saw. So, but I think I'm very impressed by the Jets' response to that as well. It would have been easy. Mark Scheifele said it. Those are the type of things that can derail a fragile team. And how much time did we spend last year talking about the fragility of the Winnipeg Jets? I'm not saying they used it as motivation, but they used it to ensure that they were not going to roll over and just say that isn't their night.
I just want to touch on this before we go because I got to get going. I got to catch an early flight.
Same.
I'm doing another Hockey Night in Canada game tomorrow in Denver. I just wanted to touch on this.
It tomorrow. Well.
Yeah. Yes. I just wanted to touch on this because I know when I said this in the past, how like I'd like to see all video replay abolished except for one. The only thing that you can challenge is whether or not the puck went over the line. That's the only instant replay I want. I think that's where it started and it's grown from there. And I hate all of it. I hate the offside call. I mean, like really in the end, did by the spirit of hockey, the idea of the offside call is to just keep someone from, sneaking in behind and turning the game into that, right? It's supposed to keep you honest. Does the inches that Mark Scheifele, crosses the line before the puck, does that really make that much of a difference on the play? No, I don't think it does. I hate the review for the offside. I hate the review for the goaltender interference. And I know I had someone kind of attack me on this and say, oh, so tell me you don't care about getting it right without telling me you don't care that you're getting it right. And I just say this, how are they getting it right if all we do is spend our time in the chat room talking about it got reviewed and they still got it wrong? And the Hellebuck situation, it got reviewed and it was the wrong play and him getting slashed in the face. Like all these things were reviewed and those plays stood. So who out there actually thinks that with all the time that we're spending on instant replay that they're getting it right? No one knows what goaltender interference is, whether it's being looked over or not. So my take on that is just like, let the ref make the call on the ice and live with it. Don't slow down the game with it. Don't put us in this situation where you're looking at the instant replay and saying, well, that's not going to count. And then it counts and it just drives everybody crazy. Just get rid of it. It's not doing what it was intended to do. Get it out of the way. get the offside call out of the way, review one thing and one thing only. The puck was such a great shot that it went off the back bar and out. No one saw it go in, or there was a scramble in the net front and it crossed the line and you can see that little bit of white in the overhead view. That is the only review I want, because I don't want a goal taken away that was an actual goal. But goaltender interference, for the most part, I think refs get this call either right or wrong. What it comes down to is what they thought it was in the real moment or not. You're reviewing something that's not changing their minds anyways. I know they're never going to do this. I just go back to this. Get it out of the game. I hate it. It slows things down, and it takes away goals in a league where you want to add goals. It's all ridiculous. That's my take. Time to get rolling out of here. I guess I should announce a home field comment on the game. Let me just see if I've got it here. Okay, I'm going to hand this one out to Waiters. Waiters said when we were talking about this, just because he is quick with the stats, I appreciate it at the time. Scheifele playoff stats, 33 games, 18 goals, 13 assists, 31 points. He's a playoff performer. Absolutely no doubt about it. This goes to my point about this. I think Mark Scheifele has the potential to be special for this team in a playoff run. Lots of players do. Clearly, Connor Hellebuck is a guy that could, steal a series for the Winnipeg Jets. Blake Wheeler is showing that the utility of Blake Wheeler is far from over. Cole Perfetti could surprise. Josh Morrissey could continue doing what he's doing. Pierre-Luc Dubois, I mean, you can't slow him down now. Imagine him during playoff hockey. Kyle Connor just keeps succeeding no matter what he does. I still say this. Mark Scheifele is my guy to watch once the Jets get to the playoffs, which I said a long time ago. I fully expect them to be there. Nothing's changing my mind, and that game goes a long way to making me feel very confident in what some people were calling a hot take earlier on. Ken, great job tonight. Proud moment for you. I'm proud of you. The chat room's proud of you. Everyone's proud of you. You did a great job. It was a nice arrival moment for you. Chat room, we appreciate your support. You sure showed it tonight. It means a ton for us to do that. And we got to end this the same way we end it always. If you appreciate these conversations, the way Ron and everyone on Hockey Night in Canada made it seem like they do, if you appreciate these conversations, the conversations you see on other shows in Winnipeg, like the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and Winnipeg Sports Talk, please appreciate the sponsors who invest in and make sure these conversations keep happening for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, the TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnson Group, Lou Ferlin, and Homefield. Thank you so much to them. Thank you so much to you all. I will not see you on this show, but if you feel like tuning into the Ottawa Senators and the Colorado Avalanche to see what's going wrong with them, I'd love to see you watching that show tomorrow. That's what I'll be on. We'll see some of you on the tube tomorrow night. We'll see the rest of you on Sunday. Bye-bye.